So we are going to go with the next topic that we have right now. We are actually going to move into the NBA right now as I, find my little NBA flyer here. But Zach, I'll keep it with you to begin, man. Let's talk about Julius Randle right now. Obviously, unfortunately, as a Knicks fan, season-ending injury. So what are the short-term, long-term ramifications of Julius Randle injury in regards to the Knicks? The mic is yours.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So Julius Randle is a player that a lot of Knicks fans and really basketball fans in general have gotten on due to some postseason shortcomings, and those were deserved. There's no doubt about it. But I think this year we really started to realize just how valuable of an asset this guy was. And there's no doubt that without Julius Randle, the Knicks are a worse team. And this is going to be something they have to manage and get through. It's funny because over the course of the last few months, we got some updates on Randle saying, oh, he's close to coming back. He's going to start contact drills. But unfortunately, I would say recently throughout the last couple of weeks, we just haven't really heard anything specific in terms of that date he'd be coming back. And then all of a sudden you turn around and the NBA regular season is just about over. We have 1 week left. So it's a huge bummer if you're a Knicks fan. This is definitely going to be some adversity they're going to have to manage. And I will say, I think there's a situation, and my initial instinct when receiving this news was like, man, I feel like we're going to look back on this Knicks season and although we'll consider it a success because this is a very fun team to watch. I think they're a very easy team to root for. I just feel like there's a good chance we're going to be looking back on this season and asking ourselves, like, what would have happened if this team just would have stayed healthy and we would have had the full roster going into the playoffs? Because I still think this team could win a playoff series. I still think there's a chance this team could win 2 playoff series and get to a conference final. But this team didn't have a great chance of going to the NBA Finals and beating Boston in a possible series, even with Randle. And without him, that task is going to be very hard to do. But honestly, Will, it kind of makes me think like, man, I don't want to say the Knicks are playing with house money because a first-round playoff exit would be very disappointing. But at the same time, even if that did happen, it's hard to really crush this team. They come to play every night. They're a very fun and enjoyable team, and they just lost one of their star players. And besides Julius, it looks like the rest of the team is rounding into form. They're healthy at the moment. But Mitchell Robinson, we know he struggled to stay on the court throughout this season. The same thing could be said with OG Anunoby. So I do think this does diminish our playoff hopes and expectations for this team a bit. But I think they're a tough team. I think they're going to keep on fighting, and I wouldn't count them out either.
First lap, I want to start off short term. And then second lap, I'll address the long term ramifications because there's some ideas flowing in my head about long term. But for starters, short term, it's about the missing production that we are going to get. We are talking about a guy who has averaged 22.6 points per game, 9.9 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists per game over the last 5 seasons, in which he has appeared in 94% of his games. And that's production coming from a volume scorer, a guy that could be heavily used in the playoffs to help a guy like Jalen Brunson when he's being blitzed, when he's forced to give the ball up. Who can pull those defenders away? Who could pull that defensive attention away? That would be a guy like Julius Randle. You could really guard him one-on-one. He's very strong. He could get to the basket with ease. I don't think there's nobody that could really guard him one-on-one like that, especially when he has his head attacking the basket. Spotty from 3, but he can shoot the 3 ball as well. So it sucks in those regards. With that being said, I do think that although his injury is going to be felt and it might cap our ceiling, I don't think we're going to make the NBA Finals. I think our floor remains the same because we get an OG back who has already come back and who's trying to get his feet wet prior to the playoffs. We were talking about a impact caliber player. That's why half of the league wanted a guy like that, because of the impact, being a 3-and-D specialist, could guard multiple positions, right? Could play multiple positions on offense as well. And just the spacing that he allows, finding the backdoor cuts, being able to shoot the 3 ball, being able to lock up a primary offensive option. Let's say we go in the playoffs and we got to lock up Dame. We got a guy for Dame. Let's say we got to go up against Tatum. We got a guy for Tatum. So he's going to be very important, our most important player in these playoffs, not named Jalen Brunson. So at least we got that guy back. And I do think we have a decent amount of spacing, rebounding, defenders. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo could shoot the three. OG can shoot the three. Josh Hart is tricky from three, but if he gets it, if he gets in the rhythm, he can knock a couple down as well. Miles McBride has been shooting the three ball well as well. But at the end of the day, it's hard for me to look and not look at that Julius Randle production and just think in my mind and simulate in my mind, plugging that into what we already have, especially when you look at the numbers, how when we had Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson and OG, and we had our guys healthy, we only lost 2 games, in that stretch, and we actually was a number 1 team in the NBA defensively. It's hard for me not to look at that stretch and talk about what if. There's long-term implications. I want to get into that right now, but Zach, I'll pass it right back to you.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points because when everyone was healthy, there's no doubt this team was looking like maybe even a possible finals contender, maybe Boston, or I would say definitely Boston's biggest threat in the Eastern Conference. But Will, I got to tell you, man, like I'm just looking at the NBA standings right now, and I know it's hard to discuss this because even though there's only a week left of basketball, these standings are just ridiculously close. Like you have Milwaukee as the current number 2 seed. Then you have the Knicks, Magic, and Cavs all tied for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, all of them with 46 wins. You have Indiana as the 6th seed with 45 wins. And it's like, is there an ideal spot in the standings or an ideal seed or even an ideal opponent that you want to see the Knicks matched up with in the first round? Because there are just so many options right now, and these standings are just so jumbled that it's hard to even think about because just one game or one result from any of these teams could really change that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually would want Cleveland again, believe it or not, in the first round. I mean, right now, I'm looking at the standings. That might be the first round matchup as of right now. Is us in Cleveland. The reason why is because although Cleveland is talented, obviously Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, they lack the mental fortitude. I think they're very soft, and we could bully those big tower guys like Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. We could bully those guys with Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, something that we did last year. Let's not forget that the most important player we had in that series last year when we played them was Mitchell Robinson because he was getting rebound after rebound. And a lot of people don't look at those things. They're going to be like, why would you want, the Cleveland Cavaliers when they got one of the best players in the world in Donovan Mitchell? But it goes beyond that. Donovan Mitchell was cooking up last year in the playoffs. He didn't get no help. And I think if we could bully those guys like Evan Mobley with Hartenstein, with guys that's going to collect rebounds and boards, like Josh Hart being one of the best rebounding wigs in the league, as well as my guy Mitchell Robinson, one of the best rebounders in the league. I'd rather the standings stay where they are and we get Cleveland in the first round.
No, I agree 100%. Cleveland, they're 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 3 games in a row, including blowing a massive lead on Sunday against the Clippers. And I think Jalen Brunson would be the best player in that series. Brunson's teams
just like how he was last year, just like how he was when he was on Dallas and they played the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell on it. Same scenario.
Yeah, no doubt. Brunson's team has beaten Mitchell's team in the playoffs each of the last 2 years. I think Indiana also would be a pretty favorable matchup. I know that team could score a lot, but they can't really defend much, and I think the Knicks defense would get into them. I'll also say this, man. I think that game on Sunday against the Bucks, that was one of the Knicks' more impressive wins of the season, in my opinion. That was fresh off the Randle news. They did not play particularly well early on in that game. Milwaukee had lost 3 in a row going in. I think that's a game they really needed. And all of a sudden, I know they're at the 2 seed right now, but again, 3 teams, the Knicks, the Magic, and the Cavs, all pretty closely behind. And Milwaukee has a pretty big one tonight going up against the Boston Celtics. So no guarantee they win that one. And there's no guarantee they get that 2 seed either.
I mean, we have shown grit all year long. And I just don't want it not to be rewarded because there's so many teams that don't take the regular season seriously, that rest their starters. I believe we got a Boston and Milwaukee matchup tomorrow. I understand they take care of business. Right? Yeah, it might be tonight actually on TNT. I believe it's tonight. You're right. And Tatum is out. I believe Brown is out. I mean, look, they handled their business. The Celtics here, they number 1 seed and all that. So I get it, but you're going to have a break anyway. The plane is coming up. They're not going to be in a playing game, so they're going to have time off. But they've been doing that. They've been having Tatum playing. Sometimes Bryant playing. We have been playing hard. we've been playing long minutes. Some of the guys on our roster playing 40 minutes per night. And, the Cleveland win that we had a couple months ago where we was missing 4 starters on the roster and we won that game, prime time affair. And Cleveland was playing hot at that time. We beat them. You talk about the Julius Randle news and how we came back and beat Milwaukee. We've been playing hard all year, had some of the best wins in the NBA this season. I remember we played Golden State. We beat them, and they were playing some of their best ball. It has to be rewarded, you figure. But when you have injuries like Julius Randle, who, by the way, was playing the best basketball of his career, he was averaging, I believe, 24 points per game this year. He actually found his stroke shooting as well. OG did wonders for him, and Jalen Brunson as well. It's a lot of questions, and this is where I want to segue into the long-term ramifications of this injury. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered that are not going to get answered because of Julius Randle's injury. Number one, can there be a Knicks team that could win an NBA Finals with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle as a number 1 and 2? That cannot be answered because he's not going to be playing. That's number one. Number two, the financial aspects of the equation. So I believe Randle's in the last year of his, I believe, 4-year, $190 million. Excuse me. He's eligible for a $190 million extension this summer. Okay, so you're talking about a guy who you probably gonna have to pay soon, along with OG Anunoby, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer, declining his player option that he's more than likely probably going to do. So then you got the injury prone narrative that's creeping in your head. Should we pay a guy like OG as far as specifically the injury prone, narrative that's floating out here? Because we know what he brings to our team and his impact and his value. We'll be happy to pay him, but the injury history you got to look at as well, especially if he's back. But let's say he struggles, shots are hitting the side of the backboard like how it was when he played the Kings, coming off of that shoulder injury the first time. Then those are things you have to consider. So you got financial things to consider. You're trying to evaluate the roster. Do we need to make a play for another star? Should we trade Julius Randle? And we're not going to have another look at Julius Randle. Oh, the big thing here is, can Julius Randle be a playoff performer? We saw him last year struggle. We saw him the first time the Knicks made the playoffs with him on the roster struggle. All right, was this year going to be different? We may never know because it's not going to happen. He's not going to be playing. So there's a lot of questions, and this injury is bad. It's just bad timing. I understand short term. I still believe we could win a series or two without him. But when you talk about the long term added insult to injury with the short term, I think it's bad than what a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know, man. And I guess my last question would be, and maybe this is too hard to answer without actually seeing it play out and knowing who they'd play, but let's just say the Knicks win one playoff series, just like they did last year, and then go out in the second round. Like, how would you feel about those results? And I don't want to say, like, sharply, would you consider the season a failure or not? But I feel like if that were to happen, or honestly, even if they were to, God forbid, lose in the first round, it would be really hard for me to kill this team because, as you said, they come to play every night. They've had some brutal injury luck, and we'll never know what the team would have looked like with a healthy Randle.
I mean, that's a good question about how, as a fan, right? Because we have to address the reality. I am a Knicks fan. So there's a level of different expectations, right? So there's the fandom expectations and there's the regular NBA watching, expectations. And so if we were to lose, let's say the second round, that's where we lost last year. And considering the injuries, it depends. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into that, how we lost, it's a lot of factors that go into that. Like, how we lost. Was it a close series? Did we play hard? Right. Because there's the way of playing hard, right? You can't be dejected. You have to play hard. That's something we do every single night. So I'm pretty sure I won't have to worry about our best foot forward, putting that on full display in the playoff game, but it's hard to think that we're going to make the NBA Finals. Even with Julius Randle, I always thought Boston was coming out, but I did think that we could have made an Eastern Conference Finals presently constructed with everybody playing and healthy and beat a dangerous threat to Boston. And it's not just a delusional Knicks fan in me. I actually really felt that way. I was calling it on the show, but I don't think that's going to happen now. However, I do think we could probably still make an Eastern Conference Finals. I would not push that out of the realm of possibilities at all. I understand guys tend to play a little bit more harder in the playoffs. So it's not going to be the Knicks playing hard and hustling. You know how it is in the regular season. There's actually going to be teams doing the same daggone thing because they want to advance in the playoffs. So it's probably going to come down to knocking down shots and having those guys in the fourth quarter like a Dame, like a Tatum that could, or excuse me, I'm not even gonna call it Tatum because sometimes he'd be a no-show. But having those superstar guys that can bring you home, and we'll see, we'll see. You know, I believe in Jalen Brunson. I believe in our roster. I believe in the spacing, the rebounding, the hustle. You know, but we'll see what happens, man. But I do have one more pitch that I want to throw out there to you, Zach, before we move on. And I think I saw this online. I agree. If we can swap Julius Randle with Mikal Bridges, I think that would be the best case scenario because you're talking about a guy in Mikal Bridges who is part of that Villanova, architect that the Knicks are building right now, playing with Josh Hart, playing with Jalen Brunson. And I think we as an organization have put Jalen Brunson in the best predicament to blossom because we have those core guys around him that he has chemistry with already. His dad on the roster already, so there's chemistry. You know, he knew Tibbs way before he was, came to New York as well. So he was in a great ecosystem. Why not boast of that? By adding a guy like Mikal Bridges, another 3-and-D guy. And it gives you flexibility in the sense that, okay, do we pay OG Anunoby? Like, all right, fine. If we pay him, he wants more. We could deal. We could cut out losses there. And we got a guy literally just like OG Anunoby, probably better than OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. Julius Randle, we flip him. He goes to Brooklyn because what Brooklyn wants Mikal Bridges to be, he's not. Mikal Bridges is at best a number two role player, 3-and-D guy that can lock you up, knock down the ball, knock down the 3-point shot, and be coherent with your stars, right? They want him to be the guy. They want him to be the volume scorer. He's not. Julius Randle could play that role for Brooklyn because he is a volume scorer. And I think he will work well with some of the 3-and-D wings that they got on the team in Brooklyn. So, me personally, if we were able, and I understand this may leave reality and touch base with fantasy here, but if we were able to swap Julius Randle, who, if there's a time to move him, it's now. He was playing the best basketball of his career. He's made an all-NBA team multiple times on his way of making another one potentially had he didn't get hurt. If we could flip that guy for a guy like Mikal Bridges and continue building that Villanova infrastructure, I think that might be the best path forward.
You might as well just name the team the Villanova Knicks at that point, right? I just think, man. So here's my thing. I agree with you that I think Bridges is better suited as a second or third option on a really good team. I think we saw that this year. When he got to Brooklyn last year, there was a belief based on the way he was playing, like, man, the Nets might have just found themselves a franchise player. But this year, that narrative has kind of gone in the other direction. And I think that's where it should be. Like, he's a very good player, but I don't think he's suited as a number one option. I do think, though, I think the Knicks are going to pay Anunoby. I think the impact that he has made to the team, the team barely loses when he's on the court.
I do think Mikal Bridges gives you some, how can I say, some flexibility, and it gives you the upper hand in negotiations. You know what I'm saying? Like, it gives you that, okay, if we do lose OG Anunoby, then it gives you an advantage, I believe, in negotiations with a guy like, OG Anunoby.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting, though, because, and this is also like overlaps with the question you brought up about Randle, and like, we're just never going to know if you could win a championship with him as your number two and Brunson as your number one. I think the Knicks, I think when the playoffs are over, this summer, we're going to have that conversation. Like, who is the superstar the Knicks are going to try, or not even a superstar, just another really good player the Knicks are going to try to bring in and get this team over the hump. And to your point, like, it's really hard to determine who that guy should be without knowing where Randle fits into the equation. Maybe that guy is Bridges. The Nets, I think they would maybe want to try to move that contract, but would they do it to their crosstown rival with playing with all of his college teammates? I'm not really sure, but Leon Rose, he's going to have some questions to answer during this offseason, no doubt.
I mean, we saw the Nets obliged by Kevin Durant's demands, and Kevin Durant did nothing for the Nets franchise, but injuries and a lot of, he wasn't reliable, and he did nothing for that franchise. They didn't make it to the finals, and yet they obliged by his demands of what he wanted. If they value Mikal Bridges, which they clearly are, turning down multiple first rounders for Mikal Bridges in the same light of a Kevin Durant, then if it comes a time where, they do move on from Mikal and he wants out and he wants to play with his Knickerbocker, former teammates from Villanova, then, you do that. And I think Julius Randle will be a good player that you're getting back. No slight at Julius Randle, but I think sometimes things run its course. It's a great time to trade him at his peak value right now. Otherwise, we never going to trade him, because he's only going to decline in the future. So I think right now it'll be a good time. I think the goal is to get Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby playing on the same team and having those guys as your ring players. I think that's a scary sight. Yeah, they do the same daggone thing, but we could work around that. That's the goal. But we'll see if that ever happens. We'll see if Sean Marks, wake up and realize that maybe it is in our best interest to trade a guy like Mikal Bridges and get some assets to really go do what we should have done when we traded Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, which is a full rebuild.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. We've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.